Welcome to the Hills to Ripples podcast with the crew of Harnessed Adrenaline. Harnessed Adrenaline's mission is promoting outdoor recreation through education, conservation, and advocacy. We hope this podcast allows you the opportunity to learn about hunting, fishing, and any other outdoor recreation activity. Welcome to the Hills to Ripples podcast. Get ready to explore nature's wonders of our episode from the spin to fly. We got Ian, Jamo, Jer, Charles, and myself. We got the part of the crew of Harnessed Adrenaline here, and we're going to be talking about fishing this week. So I'm going to pass it on over to Ian.
Yeah, awesome. I thought we would all kind of start by giving a quick intro about ourselves and our background in fishing, what we love to do, where we found success, and just what gets us excited. And I guess to start, man, I've lived in Colorado most of my life, and I started fly fishing at, I don't know, maybe 4 years old, about as early as I could hold a rod and actually make sense of it. And I fished casually growing up, and then it was in college when I really met Jameson that I really fell in love with it. We explored a lot of the waters of Colorado, and then I ended up landing a guide job early on that I frankly probably didn't deserve at the time, but I've been guiding fly fishing for the last decade or so, and I've learned a lot along the way. So happy to share some of that knowledge.
Yeah, awesome. And Jer.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it. I started fishing. I've been fishing pretty much my whole life since a kid. Just basically stuck with spin reel. I really came a long way in spin reel fishing. Haven't really dipped into the fly rod stuff. Just recently started fishing rivers with the spin reel, which has been a complete change from reservoirs and ponds. But yeah, I mean, just from boat to shore, I've come a long way, and after that, hunting, just big game hunting, small game hunting. Hope to get into some bird hunting this season, and yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. I've had a lot of success here in Colorado. I've fished Colorado most of my life, so I've really kind of dialed it in lately, and it's gotten better, and it's getting good as we go. So,
and I don't like.
Don't worry, Jer. We'll make a convert of you yet.
Hold on, I don't like modesty. I try to stay away, but Jer here, he's fished the river, the lakes of Maine. He's fished all through the Midwest there. I mean, he's a seasoned guy. He's just super, super humble.
I have ventured out a few times in my life. Thank you, Charles.
But you got to venture out for those exotic fish sometimes.
Yeah, well, I don't know how exotic Maine is, but no. I actually, a lot of the stuff I used in Maine was just the knowledge I've learned from fishing here in Colorado, and so you kind of take every state with you and try it all.
Unfortunately for me, river fishing in Colorado didn't help me a whole lot in Baja for 40 days, but you had to adapt and overcome. You had to figure it out.
Well, it sounds like it's your turn to give us your quick bio, Jameson.
So, man, I really got started. I've been fishing my entire life. But every kid pretty much, it starts with a worm and a bobber. And that's how it was for me for a long time, till about high school, when I kind of got into the world of fly fishing. And by that, it's a very loose term. I didn't know what I was doing, and I just wanted to try it out. I probably didn't catch a fish for 2 years until I met Ian in chemistry class in college. And from that point on, it kind of blossomed. We actually chatted in school about our love of fishing, and he told me he was a fly fisherman. So I was like, man, that's awesome. It'd be great to have somebody to go out with. And from then on, it's been, all over the state of Colorado. We've gone to Utah. We've gone to Wyoming. I've fly fished in Mexico, both on the mainland of Mexico and all the way down the Baja Peninsula. I've fished in Puerto Rico. Fly fishing has become a big passion of mine, and there's never enough of it. There's always another fish out there you can catch. So it's a good way to get out and see. One of my favorite things about fly fishing and fishing in general is just it puts you in some really, really cool spots. Some of the places that I saw in Baja is like a place that, most tourists would never go, but it was a place that beautiful beaches and great food and fantastic fish. So if you guys are looking for an excuse to get out into the woods or into the world, fishing is a great way to do that.
So what you're saying real quick, J-Mo, is that you and Ian met in chemistry class and immediately had chemistry.
Yes, we did. The spark ignited there.
2 quick things I want to add to Jameson's bio. Yeah, we met in chemistry class, connected over fishing, and then you know what? However many years later, he's the best man at my wedding. But really, it was fishing that started this friendship.
That's awesome.
And one extra point, he mentions he started out being a bobber and worm fisherman. My favorite detail there is that his mom wanted him to love the outdoors, but didn't want to deal with fish. So she would cut off the hook and tie on a worm so that he'd get all excited when the bobber went down, but she didn't actually have to deal with fish.
Savage.
Oh,
Does he know this?
Woman's a genius.
Joke's on you.
Had to add a little context.
And there's where the trust issues start.
Love it.
So,
Awesome.
but we got gentlemen here from spin fishing all the way to fly fishing. So this is going to be a wonderful episode if you are looking to get into fishing in any way, shape, or form. So I'm going to turn it over to Charles and let him kind of facilitate some of the conversation here on where we want to go and how we want to talk about it.
Well, first we need your fishing introduction. I think we got everyone else's. You're the first person I ever went fly fishing with.
So yeah, I grew up in Montana, fishing, bobber and worm like J-Mo did, but I kind of started falling in love with fly fishing when I saw Norman McLean for the first time. A River Runs Through It, if you guys know that movie. It was actually filmed a few hundred yards from my dad's best friend back up in Montana. So
Never heard of it.
You've never heard of A River Runs Through It. You're going to have to check it out.
It's a
I'm
fantastic.
completely kidding. The director of that movie lives 20 minutes up the road from me.
I've heard of it,
Oh.
but I
Fun
haven't
fact.
seen it.
Nice. Yeah, so I started falling in love with it there, and then about 2015, a buddy of mine who I moved in with got me involved with fly fishing and said, "You got to go with me. You got to try this out." And ever since then, when I caught my first rainbow on that on my fly rod, it was beautiful. I fell in love with it. Took Charles out for the first time,
What happened?
and
Everyone
Oh,
remembers
what-
you first.
what happened? Are you guys ready? So I told Charles, I was like, "This is gonna drop down, so you gotta keep your feet under you and walk slowly." And he decided to keep just walking through as fast as he could, and got swept out from underneath him, and his waders filled full of water. And as I call it, he took a drink in the river. And
Wrong move.
So
Wrong move.
there's not much context there. Let's talk about this.
No, I think I've heard all the context I need. To double down, the first time I took Charles fishing, he also caught a fish, but he
man.
also broke his rod.
It's factual.
I didn't know he broke his rod on that one. I knew he caught a fish with you, but his first time going with me, he didn't.
I caught a drink.
He caught a drink.
So I'm going, and it's February, right? It's Paco Chupac, beautiful waters, right? The Gunnison River, February, so it's cold, very cold. And so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna bring my duck waders. I'm gonna be smart. Heavy, right?
Bad move.
And so this whole day, Lane's telling me, hey man, watch out. If like the river's not what it seems like. It's deeper in spots, this, that, and whatever. I'm like, all right, well, the whole day I haven't fallen at all, so you don't know what you're talking about. We can cross wherever I say we can cross. Well, we get to this point, and he's like, well, we need to cross the river at some point, but not here. And I was like, no, man, here's perfect. This is perfect. We get halfway through this darn river, and it goes from hey, this is fun, to phase 4. And I was underneath, and by God, I was naked on the other side and dry off in about 20 minutes.
Wow. So wait, just to be clear, Charles,
I love everyone's like getting into fly fishing. I think everyone's got that story. I don't know spin fishing, how much you have to get in, but
I would love to add to this. These are funny stories. I've heard one of them, but now I've heard 2. He's been with me on the boat, and he's been with me on the ice, and he's never fell in the drink. I think the key is to keep
because Charles can't fit through those ice fishing holes.
Yeah.
Otherwise you probably would have.
I used to fit.
No, I probably fit through there, but no, I actually think that's funny. That I think the key is to keep him away from the river, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Elkhorn Coffee Roasters at elkhorncoffeeroasters.com has been our longest sponsorship. If you're like us on the team, finding consistently great coffee is almost as tough as finding that 350 plus class bull. Scott and April have solved this search. Most orders are roasted just after the time of ordering. Go check out their selections, from whole bean to steep bags for your on-the-mountain adventures. Use promo code HA for 15% off orders of $25 or more.
Here at Harness Adrenaline, we understand how important hydration is, not only for hiking miles into the backcountry, fly fishing the Colorado River, or while summiting peaks across the nation. That's why we are so excited to tell you about the all-encompassing Grail GeoPress filter and purifier. One press, global purification. Right now, use Adrenaline20 for 20% off of any order. And be sure to check out all the other products available at grail.com.
Well, that's
So-
a big
Can't do it. You can't do it.
Okay, so what's one more Charles story there, Ian?
Just one thing I want to add to that is, to be clear, Charles, really, Lane took you to the same place to fish for the first time that I took you?
Yes.
I thought that was our special place.
Can't do that.
I spoke too much.
No
This
chemistry
is why
there.
you said he was gonna butt out.
You ruined the old first date spot.
Ian, remember, like I said, though, everyone remembers their first.
Yeah.
Right. I remember both. I'm sorry.
I'm
You're
sure
making
you
my
do.
side of the screen awkward.
All right, here. So I'm just gonna get it out here. I'm gonna ask all 3 of you guys, each of your respective sports with fly fishing and spin fishing. So, and we can choose who wants to answer first. But what would you recommend somebody would need and needs to know before they get started with whether it is fly fishing or spin fishing?
That's a solid question. And I think from my experience, the first thing, like getting into fly fishing, this was pretty well into my fishing career. Honestly, and I got to say, hats off to Ian, find yourself somebody to go with. It's so much more enjoyable to go out with somebody and experience the stuff together. And maybe you can get lucky enough, kind of like me, and Ian was raised on fly fishing. Him and his pops did it for a long time. So I got lucky enough to get his knowledge and his father's knowledge on my journey forward with fly fishing. But even if it's two brand new people going out to experience it for the first time together and get into it, it's like, let me tell you, sometimes when you start catching big fish, netting them by yourself can get kind of difficult. So there's one reason to have another person with you, but it's just it's an experience. It's just a fun place to get out and enjoy. And the more people you have around you, good times with good people is never a problem. So I guess like an easy one for me is just find somebody, and there's plenty of ways to do that. You know, people around you, or you know, social media, whatever have you. I'd say just don't be afraid to ask if people want to go fishing, because if you find the right person, every time is the right time to go fishing. So there's probably not a time I can call Ian up and say, "Hey, buddy, you want to go fishing this weekend?" I mean, unless, you know, he's got back surgery again, he'd probably be there.
Yikes.
Well, and I mean, you took a lot of the words right out of my mouth, Jameson, but I'll add to that a little bit. And I'll say, don't just find anybody. Anybody's good, but find somebody you enjoy spending time with, because even our worst days of fishing have been some of our favorite memories.
Yep, I could agree with that.
And
Yep.
frankly, when you're out on the water with a good friend, there's no such thing as a bad day. You know, it's the old saying of a bad day of fishing is better than a good day at work.
Well, until your good friend gets his wife into fishing, and then she outfishes me every single time we go.
Yeah, my bad on that one.
It happens. It happens.
But I think the point JMO was getting at when he first brought it up was it's really helpful when you have a mentor getting in. And my advice to our listeners, if you don't have somebody who jumps to mind as a mentor for fishing, then start with YouTube. Start online. Read every article, watch every video that you can think of, and get a base and just get out there, even if it's by yourself in the beginning, because once you get out there, you will find that fishermen are incredibly friendly and accepting. And if you're that idiot stumbling around on the bank, not catching anything, just go talk to the next guy down and say, "Hey man, how's it going? Are you having any luck? Because I'm really having a hard time." And you never know what those
I have no clue what I'm doing.
I've met lifelong friends just talking to strangers on the bank of a river.
Yeah, and I've been there, and the amount of times, you know, they'll be like, "Yeah, dude, I'm using this fly. Tie it on and go for it," and then you start seeing success. It's magical.
More often than not, they'll say, "Here you go, have 3."
Yeah, exactly. As long as I have some extras, you can definitely have one.
Yeah.
That's true. I've had fly fishermen actually show me the clear bobber dragging a fly technique when I didn't know what I was doing on a river.
So that's the way I first started quote unquote fly fishing, or with flies, was on a clear bobber drug behind a spin rod. I found it in my dad's old tackle box when I first started fishing, and I was like, this was before I even knew what fly fishing was, and I was like, what are these things? This isn't a worm. This isn't power bait. What do I do with this?
This has a hook on it. What's wrong?
The smallest hook you've ever seen in your life at that time.
Oh, absolutely. And it
How
catches
is
the
that gonna
biggest
catch
fish.
something is what you're thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. What is this? A catching bait minnows or something?
Oh, that's always my favorite thing with clients is, you know, anytime you're on a guide trip, they love to ask you, "What's your biggest fish?" I'll show them the picture and they'll go, "Oh my God, where'd you catch it? What'd you catch it on?" And I'll show them the smallest fly you've ever seen. And they're like, "No way. No way you caught that fish on that thing smaller than your pinky nail."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have magnifying glasses on to tie it onto your tippet.
Yeah, that's facts.
So Jer, what would you recommend if somebody is just getting out into spin fishing? What would you recommend they need to know or should have?
Well, just to tag along, I mean, definitely there are so many groups these days. I've met, I wouldn't know of some of my spots if it wasn't for reaching out, and that's a huge thing. There's a group for trout, there's a group for crappies, there's a group for bass, walleyes. I mean, it's everywhere. So yeah, social media has come a long way. It's definitely a start. But I've always liked to tell people, definitely shore fishing especially is huge around, definitely here in Colorado. Definitely keep your eyes on the rules and regs. You know, even if you get the little brochure, it even gives you an idea of what to try for what species. It's starting at a bobber and a worm. But it's definitely, it just tags on with what everybody has been saying. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. The number one thing you can't be ashamed of is asking. So, I mean, I've talked to people just these past couple of weeks that have gotten off of their boats with no fish, and they walk over and ask what I'm doing. And and just know that there's so many different options out there. And when you're at the sportsman's store, or the bait shops around town, they're full of information. Just ask. I mean,
Yeah, and the old guy or girl behind the counter, is probably a good place to start.
Well, and then my number one thing is, guess who's hearing all the stories, and guess who's selling all the bait? Guess who's selling the leeches, the minnows, the worms? What's going faster, and who knows more than the one selling it? So it's always about ask, and that's like you guys are saying. You just can't be afraid to ask, and nobody thinks that, oh, look at this guy wasting my time. Look at this girl wasting my time. No, it's out there, and it's right in front of everybody, and it's just all about being laid back and taking an easy approach. And just the fact that people want to go out and start trying, that's great, but they just need to feel more welcome. And I think that if people just had that relaxation feeling that, oh, I could just go talk to that guy. Are we all there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and also, I love the philosophical start to this, boys. But let's also call a spade a spade. And if any of the listeners out here are wanting to go fishing, I think first thing you should get is a fishing rod and a fishing license.
Well, very true.
Yeah. It goes without saying. And so you both brought up a few things I want to comment on. First of all, Jared, to your point, your local shops are just such a wealth of information and a great place to start. And to this day, I've been a guide for a decade, and still, if I'm going somewhere new or a place I haven't been in a year or so, I call up the local shop before I even leave, and I say, "Hey, how's it been going?" And then I go out of my way, like even if I don't need anything, I go out of my way to stop in there, see them in person, talk to them, because you'll get some info on a phone call, but you'll get a lot more info with a handshake.
Yeah.
And anytime you go into a shop, even if you don't need anything, spend $20. Like, just, if nothing else, it's a way of saying thank you for your time and your information. I appreciate it, and I'm willing to support a local shop. So that's something I really recommend, especially to beginners. Anytime you want to go out, call up your local shop, build a relationship, get to know those guys, because at the end of the day, we're all fishermen. We're all pretty laid back, and we like to tell fish stories. You can ask our wives.
Yeah.
And then to Jameson's point, obviously, one, you got to be legal. Do it right. That goes without saying. Read your regs, buy your license. But on the gear front, you don't need the top of the line gear starting out.
There it is. Amen.
Yep. Preach to that.
Don't get me wrong. I own the $1,000 fly rods. Do I love them? Yeah, they're pretty cool. Do you need it to catch a fish? Absolutely not. To add some perspective to that, there was one day when I drove to the river with my wife to go fishing, and I realized I didn't have the key to my rod box. I had one backup in the truck, so she's definitely getting that. And I found a big long stick, and I tied some string to it, and I caught fish with a stick and string. Like, it can be done. You do not need the top of the line gear to get started. As your skills develop, it helps, but until you're good enough for that gear to actually shine, it's not going to make a difference.
Yep. I bring I'm sorry. I bring 5 rods with me and all my lures, and I'll tell you, I'll use one lure and one rod the whole time while everything else just sits there and watches. And I'll say this season, that's been the key. More rods, more fish. That's my problem right now.
Yeah.
Ian, you were talking about fish stories and telling your wives that kind of stuff. So let's all think back. What is our one fish memory that we will never forget about? What is one story about one fish you caught that you'll never forget about?
Oh no.
Oh, well, I can give you mine. And right now it wasn't even me catching a fish. It was me netting a fish. This is some years back. It was Ian, myself, and a few other buddies up in right around the Taylor River. And gosh, I think it was Ian who was hooked up to one of the biggest, what was that, a Snake River cut that I think
Yep.
maybe the state of Colorado's ever seen. That might have been a state record if we had known better.
Mhm.
But it comes out of a river, I kid you not, maybe the width of a twin bed.
Yeah. That wasn't even a river. That was
Yeah.
a creek
That was a trickle.
in full runoff that was 2 feet wide.
Yeah. So that, just to see a fish that large coming out of water like that was incredible. But we didn't have the tippet nor the line, I think, equipped to hold a fish like that, because we weren't expecting anything like that to show up. So Ian's having to play with this thing more softly than any other fish.
It felt like a lifetime.
Yeah. And so I'm on one side of the river. Our buddy Aaron is on the other side of the river. We each have a net in our hands, and Ian's turning this fish's head, trying to reel him in. But as soon as he'd get it close, it would shoot back out. And I say the middle of the river, 4 inches back into the center of the stream. But he's running down the river with the fish on the line. Aaron and I are diving back and forth across this creek trying to get it in the net, and thank goodness eventually we pulled it off. But just the running back and forth of dive, get in there, get out of the way, oh, watch the line, oh, pick his head up. It was just an absolute crap show for, like you said, Ian, felt like an eternity. I don't know how long you were fighting that fish, but God, that was, I think the only thing to compare to that is you catching a beaver on the line. But
Well, that one crossed my mind too. We'll get there.
But yeah, I think that one is just, in, like we've been just saying, it wasn't even me catching a fish. I was just part of it. I was out there, and it was just so much fun. I couldn't.
Well,
we all sat down and
I'm glad you told this one, because I'll tell that one. But with the one you told, man, the hardest part of that whole endeavor was not getting our legs wrapped around the line and breaking it to let that fish go, because that was a 5-pound fish on 2-pound line.
Yep.
That's
So
crazy.
you can't horse him. You gotta let him do what he wants to do.
And he was doing everything that he wanted to do, for sure. He was diving over our nets. Swimming in between our legs, and we're trying to stay out of the way. And yeah, it was just the most fanatic, 10 minutes of trying to land a fish, because it's all happening so tight in. On a big river with big fish, they run out into the middle of the river, and you're just fighting them. You're just trying to tire them out, really.
About the current too.
Right, a lot of current. It was just, that fish he went from 2 feet of water to 2 inches of water, and he was really just all over the place. It was the wildest experience. So
The
much
quote of that day was dive, dive, dive. Get out of the way.
out of the way. He's in between you. All right, get down, lower.
Yep. Oh, that was a fun one.
Jer, what about you?
All right, so mine goes to Stagecoach Reservoir in here in Colorado. So we were out on a 9-day trip. We did all right, but we were out there, talked to a local guy that kind of showed us what to do there. This is back before I advanced to use lures or light tackle or anything more than a Walmart Shakespeare reel. So yeah, we were out throwing worms out. Me and my buddy, we set our poles, side by side, throw worms out, and I go up to the parking lot to cook some breakfast on our little stove. I hear a noise at the bank, but don't think nothing of it. And I I had actually just purchased this rod and reel also. I hear a noise, don't think nothing of it, go down to check our poles, and mine is completely gone. It's over. It's that everything I bragged about is gone. And my friend's pole starts going off. He's getting a bite. So he thinks, all right, we're good. It's picking up. He sets the hook and reels in my new pole. On the end of my new pole was probably the biggest cut bow I've ever caught in this state. To this day, he was still on the line. He dragged my pole and snagged my buddy's line. And I'm looking at the state record cut bow right now. I might argue that the one that I caught, and the same as everyone else, we were so new, it might have beat the state record. But he caught my pole, and I ended up retrieving the fish that took it into the lake. And to this day, still, I have not caught a cut bow as big as that one that I caught. I did keep it, and we had to cook it on a 4-burner stove and 4 different pans.
Wow.
Wow.
And so yeah, that was crazy. My pole that I bragged about the whole trip was gone. It came back with possibly my personal best cut bow trout out of Stagecoach Reservoir. And
Well, Jared, quit now because it's all downhill from there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, well, we can get into walleye later. We'll...
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah. Hey, remind me to circle back to that because that was a question I had for you.
Oh, okay.
Sure. In terms of like what kind of species you prefer to target and everything like that.
Of course. Yeah.
That was going to be my next question after I shared my story here.
Yeah. What you got, Lane?
So my favorite memory, all-time fish that I will always remember is we were in West Yellowstone growing up above there. So we had access down just above there, and reservoir there. Jerry, you'll get a kick out of this. I was bobber fishing, and it was my 2 cousins, my older brother, and myself. We had all had lines out. We'd been sitting all day long, waiting all day. We hadn't caught a single thing. And then the night comes, we didn't catch anything. So then the next day comes around, and we've been waiting, and it was probably about 4:00 in the afternoon, and you just see a big fish just jump right out where everybody's lines are. And all you hear is the lines start getting pulled out from my rod. And I'm like, okay. So I'm reeling this in. And it was the only fish we caught that entire weekend. And I still remember to this day because that was the only time that I was a better fisherman than everybody in my family, so I was really happy about that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
So Ian, you said it. Let's have you start us off with that. What is your favorite species to target, and what's your favorite species to eat?
Ooh, yeah, no, that's a tough one. So obviously with fly fishing, you're mainly targeting trout. That's like the gold standard, and that's been my bread and butter for pretty much my whole life. They're definitely my favorite fish to target and catch, but frankly, they're not my favorite fish to eat. Usually we'll keep 1, maybe 2 throughout the year, usually on special occasions. Like we have a tradition right around Thanksgiving. We'll go catch a big one and make trout nachos.
Trout nachos, baby.
Yeah, that's
never tried that.
Yeah, it's not bad. But I'd say if you made me pick a fish to target to say I want to take this to the dinner table tonight, that's salmon for me all day long. That is by far my favorite fish to eat, and boy, if you can find them on a fly rod, they are a good time.
Nice.
J-Mo?
Oh man, let's see. Gosh, favorite fish to target has changed quite a bit over the last few years. It will always forever be my favorite trout in the world is a brown trout. God, I just love them. But kind of moving into the exotics of fly fishing over the last few years, targeting bonefish and rooster fish. And I mean, believe it or not, you can catch tuna, mahi, marlin. You can catch pretty much anything in the ocean on a fly rod. And I'd have to say right now, rooster fish are by far and away my favorite. It is the most painstaking, brutal fly fishing you will ever do. I mean, I spent 40 years last year in Baja sleeping on the beach the entire time, except for a few times in a hotel or an Airbnb. But
days, not years, to
Yeah,
clarify.
I was gonna say.
did I say 40 years?
Either way,
Yeah.
Felt like an eternity.
But it sounds like it would be worth the wait.
It is. Well, and mind you, I caught of the species I targeted, I caught 2.
In 40 days.
So I'm not saying I'm the greatest at it. I'm sure there's probably a bunch of people that will listen to this and laugh, but once again, it was just quite the experience. And it's kind of hard to get good at rooster fishing when you can only do it maybe once a year. I got lucky enough to do it 2 years in a row, but and if you're doing it a traditional way, there's a much easier way to do it down there, but it's not as quote unquote traditional for any purists. But if you're just looking for a tight line, there's an easier way to do it. And then, man, I'd have to say to eat would probably be mahi or dorado or dolphin fish. It's all the same thing, just depending on where you're at. But that's the beautiful green and blue guys with the funky little noggins. But they make great ceviche. They make great, grilled, blackened. You can eat it raw as, some sushi. And there's nothing you can't do with that fish that doesn't taste incredible. At least on a fly rod.
Nice.
Yeah. And Jer, what about you?
I'm definitely gonna go with favorite fish to catch. That'd probably be catch and eat. I'm definitely a walleye, crappie. That if I could just get crappie are so fidgety, they can be so picky. If you can get into some crappies, and just start stringing up some crappies, like, man, you're having a good day, because they are just they're so picky. You got to change your colors, you got to change your sizes, you got to they're just picky. And once you get into them, you're like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. And you just got to you can hit them with live bait, soft plastics, the slip bobbers, cast and retrieve. And I just love crappie, because when I'm out there and I'm starting to get into the crappie, man, it's just a fun day. But walleye tacos are hard to pass up.
Delicious.
Walleye tacos with some homemade pico. Oh man, yeah.
Are you sure you're not from the Midwest, there, Jer?
Born and raised Colorado, but oh man, yeah, walleye tacos. Oh man, it's like, oh, I caught this 18-inch walleye. Should I let it go? I gotta let it go, but oh man, just the thought. But walleyes are great too. There's just so many different ways to catch them. I mean, whether you're on your boat or out on the bank, when you find them and you get dialed in, and you're just like to my buddy the other day, where I figured out what was going on, lent him a lure that I was using, and still outfished him. You just know what you know when you know. And they're fun. You got to kind of work for them. You really have to kind of sink to their level, which is where I wouldn't know how to catch those fish if I didn't talk to somebody. So, but definitely walleyes and crappies for me. Don't get me wrong, bluegills are good too, but I think a bluegill on a worm and bobber will pretty much bite anything all day. And you don't have to figure them out, and you don't have to you don't have to play to their rules. So
Oh, not at all. Yeah, I was at Pueblo Reservoir. We were out boating one weekend, and I just got bored and had brought the fly rod, and it didn't matter what fly you put on. If you dangled it just the right way in front of them, they'd attack it. So
oh yeah, yeah, that's
you could do whatever you want.
definitely a last resort. You know, like I better reel in something.
Yeah,
Watch the bluegill. They're right there.
Well,
Yeah.
and so Jared, the way you talk about crappie and how fun they are when you figure them out and how finicky they can be, I think that's part of what makes us fall in love so much with fly fishing.
Yeah.
With trout
Yeah.
too. I mean, just you can go to the same spot 10 times in a row, and if you got the wrong fly at the wrong depth, you're not going to catch a thing. But
Mhm.
it's an art and a science.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way that I approach it. Is
Yeah, I
of
agree.
course, as Charles mentioned, I'm an engineer. I have a very scientific approach to fishing.
Mhm.
So it's trial by error.
A lot of error.
Yeah, a lot of, and that's
when
the
you
one
first
other thing I
started-
wanted to mention. At the end of the day, it's all time spent.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're going to figure this out.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I have a very systematic approach when I approach a river of, all right, this is what should be hatching right now. I don't know what stage they're at, whether it's nymphs, emergers, dry flies, but I'm going to approach this hole where there's a high likelihood of fish. I'm going to start at the back, move almost like a grid, like moving my flies 1 foot at a time, because that's about how far a trout will move to go get something it likes.
Mhm.
And then work my way up through that hole, moving it out 1 foot at a time, take 2 steps, do it again, and really grid search that river. And hopefully that's something that'll help people kind of figure out what's working in their area. If you're not catching fish, it's not, most of the time, it's not because they're not there.
Yeah.
It's
And they're,
these fish
and
can
they're
be
always hungry, just so you know. Fish are always hungry.
Yep. They're just not buying what you're selling.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I know Charles is not the greatest fly fisherman. He likes swimming in the water more than fishing, and I haven't been around him very much when he's spin fish. So, but Charles, what is your favorite fish to target and to eat?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So as much as I hunt now and fish occasionally. I mean, really, if I'm not with Jared, I'm probably not fishing. I'd like that to change. I got some great gold medal water access in Montana. Ian and Lane. Sorry. Anyway, so I would like to. Did someone just die? Is everyone okay?
Somebody just get attacked by a dog.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I have to run to my door quick.
Oh, I'll go.
No worries.
my favorite fish to catch, I would say pike.
Okay.
By far my favorite. I've only caught 4, and that's probably the reason. They're tough to not only find but also
Clean.
Yeah, they're tough to clean, and they put up a fight. I mean, there's some species of fish, we've all caught them, right? That once you hook them, they're like, okay, buddy, I get it. I'm done.
I accept my fate.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of eating, right, a perch for me. If you can find a solid sized perch, which is hard in Colorado, but
what do they call those? Pan fryers?
Yeah,
panfish. Yeah,
exactly. So,
Panfish, yeah,
dude, when you can get a good sized perch, man. Oh, I've had some in Kansas and in Nebraska and things like that, and I mean they're every bit of 8, 9, 10 inches, and you're like, these are money.
definitely ice fishing targets for sure.
Okay, yeah. So those are mine. Thanks for bringing me back in with that illustrious intro there, Lane.
You're very welcome. Yeah.
We'll keep them out of the water as much as we can.
But for me, my favorite fish to target would have to be on top of everything. Would be, I know it's way out of the norm for what you guys have been talking about, but halibut. I love halibut.
I was gonna say that was gonna be my favorite one to eat.
Yeah, that's my favorite to eat and my favorite to target.
Nice.
Just because that was my graduation gift from high school from my uncle. He lived in Alaska, so he flew me up there, and I spent a week salmon fishing up there and halibut fishing up there, and it was just amazing, and it's just a beautiful area to be. And then on top of that, just the halibut cheeks itself
Oh yeah,
are amazing.
Yeah.
that's what I've heard. What was your biggest size while you were up there? Anything that gave you a workout with those?
My biggest one I caught was 35 inches.
You'll take it.
Yeah.
They all
But it was not the biggest one I saw that day. The biggest I caught, not that I caught, but that I saw, it reached close to 90 some inches.
Nice.
It was huge. I was in shock.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't turn down a trip to do something like that. That's
And for those of you listening out there, these halibut can get to like 500 pounds.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They can get to be incredibly sized fish, sinking boats when they come on board that big. If you're out there in a little skiff or something, so
Yeah.
But overall, that was one of my favorite fish to target and eat. Right there are going to be the halibut there. So
Yeah, well, I'll put one other thing out there, and it might be something that none of you guys have dabbled in, and the same might be said for our listeners. But if you're somebody who enjoys fishing and also enjoys hunting, go give spearfishing a try.
how did I know that was going to come up?
Oh my god, it's a blast. I got hooked on it recently.
I thought you got speared on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To me, it's if you could combine fishing with archery elk hunting, that would be spearfishing. And I'll tell you what, if you want to get humbled real quick, give that a try for a day with a traditional Hawaiian 3-prong. It's a good time. But if I'm going to suggest that, I have to throw the disclaimer out there: don't ever go alone, and frankly, go guided your first time, because you don't know what you don't know, and that is a dangerous sport if you don't know what you're doing.
Well, Ian, you bring up a good point there that I think we should talk about is the going guided part. If you really are trying to get into it and you have no idea what you're doing, maybe spend the money on, an 8-hour day or even a half day, 4-hour day. And there's your ticket right there to start picking some brains and seeing and finding knowledge.
Yep.
I couldn't agree more. And I've had a lot of those clients over the years who've said, man, I really want to get into this, or I just got into it and I just can't figure it out. Can we go out for a day? And I don't care if we even really catch fish. Can you just teach me?
Yeah.
And the $300 that you spend for a half-day guide trip, you will earn knowledge that's worth 10 times that in a short period of time.
Yeah. Lifetime knowledge.
You will cut a year off your learning curve in half a day. I'm glad you brought that up, Jameson. I could not highly advocate for that enough.
Definitely. Also, with spin reel, if you're starting out boating and fishing, you're gonna go out on a boat and fish. Getting a guide service, there's plenty around the Front Range here in Colorado. Getting out on a reservoir and seeing what it's like, to have your boat out. You get a new boat. You think you're just ready to go. You get out there, you're in the way, and you're tangled up, and you're in, and it gets windy. You can really learn a lot through the guide service if you're not too sure about getting your boat out. Spin reel fishing out here in the Front Range, our lakes are a lot smaller than other places, and they get very crowded. It'd be really good to get an idea of what you're getting into before you first time weekend warrior it with a family of 4 out there in the crowded lakes that are the Front Range of Colorado. So that one's definitely good to look into, and there's plenty, and you can find them, and they're always looking for people, and they're out there.
So, Jared, I'm going to ask you about that because I have no experience in that. So, for any of you that are looking to get into fly fishing, finding a fly fishing guide is pretty easy. You can Google whatever area you're going to and say fly fishing shop, and it'll probably bring one up, and they'll have guides there. I've never actually looked into, say like a Front Range, boating guide, like where do you Walleye Charter? Okay. Or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Walleye Charter, Front Range guides. There's a few.
And do they get on your boat, or do they have boats that you go on?
Oh, you'll go on theirs.
Okay.
There's All Pro Outdoors, which is an 11 like in the 11-mile spinning area.
Okay.
Lowry Outdoors is a Front Range one for sure. Lowry Outdoors. There's definitely a lot more river guides, but that I know of. Tightline Outdoors is also one that I know of, and they'll target those few. They'll target Aurora Reservoir, Cherry Creek Reservoir, Chatfield, and looking up the Loveland area. There's some guides that do Boyd Reservoir, Boyd Lake State Park. They're always looking for people, and they'll get you out there. They'll get you familiar with boating out there. You kind of get an idea of what it's like to kind of be surrounded by jet skis and wakeboarders, but really also how to target fish. Use electronics if you have them. They're always available, and searching and asking. I think that's kind of been the number one focus. Just don't be afraid to search. Don't be afraid to ask, and you're gonna get out there, and you're gonna get started pretty quick with just those two techniques right there.
And one thing I want to add to that real quick. I know we're getting close on time here, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But the one thing I'll add there is don't be afraid to call multiple until you find the kind of trip that's really going to help you. And to add some perspective to that, like if I have somebody who calls me and says, "Hey, I've been trying to figure this out and I can't figure it out. I really want to learn as much as I can in a day," I'm not going to take them out of my boat. If they're a wade fisherman who's pounding the banks of the river, going out for a day on the boat, sure, we might catch a lot of fish, but that's not really what's going to help you be successful in your own time.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, like if you really want to learn, okay, let's go do what you're going to do,
Right.
and let me try and show you how we can do it a little better.
Yeah, as far as shoreline guides for local ponds and reservoirs, I'm not too sure of, and that would actually be something that I would ask around for and look up if I was interested in something like that. So,
and sometimes you just want something different. Sometimes you want to go out on a boat because you don't have one, and that's fine too.
Oh yeah,
but you're going to learn a lot more from going out with a guide and doing the same thing that you will be trying to do on your own.
definitely.
Right.
Yep. Your options are out there.
That's the truth.
All right, gentlemen, any closing remarks you have?
I would say just what we've already said. You don't need the most expensive gear. It's all about time spent out there and being willing to ask questions and meet people. And you'll find that the fishing community is a great one. And don't be afraid to give it a try, because you never know. You might just end up running into the guy that's the best man at your wedding.
Amen.
You might not hook the biggest fish, but it might hook the bestest friend. So you never know.
There you go.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It was a good talk. And just remember, every day on the water is a good day. So get out there.
Yep. Remember
Get after
where you're at. Figure them out. And once you have a fish on the end of your line, you'll understand the hype.
Mm-hmm.
There we
You know,
That's the truth.
live for the hype.
Live for the hype.
And as always, feel free to go check us out at Harness Adrenaline on Instagram and on our website at www.harnessadrenaline.com. Have a great rest of your night and get out.
Tight lines, everyone.
Yep.
Get after it.